Hello and welcome to Natural Balance, where body, mind, and spirit connect. I'm your host, Mia Sines. And in this episode with me is Catherine Dietz. And we are going to talk about some great relationship stuff because relationships are the deepest core of who we are and what we truly desire on this planet as humans. We can get spiritual, we can also get mainstream, but literally it's the most valuable thing. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Catherine. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's really a pleasure to have you, but I want you, I want you to share more about you and fill in these gaps. As most of the viewers know, I don't normally just read off people's bios and stuff. I like to go with the flow. I met Catherine a couple months ago, and she answered a casting call more or less for relationship coaches, and I enjoyed speaking with her, so I'm bringing her to you. So share with us a little bit more about the work that you do, Catherine.
Okay, yes. So I started out as an umbrella heal your life coach based on the philosophy of Louise Hay, which is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then just through my own personal experience and through so many similarities that were coming up in the women that I was working with, I really wanted to focus on romantic relationships. And I just kept on honing in more and more and more on what drew me to it and what I was passionate about helping people with. And then through my own personal experience of should I stay or should I go, and that struggle and that confusion and the fear of the unknown, I decided to specialize in that. And so I started specializing in that particular should I stay or should I go field about 3 years ago. I've created an amazing step-by-step program that I offer to people, and I just love helping women move from that place of confusion and struggle to clarity and peace of mind. It's not an easy place to be.
And that's really beautiful. And I love the statement you just said, should I stay or should I go? Because when we're wanting something different in our life or a different experience, we all ask, should I stay or should I go? Even if it's simply, should I move out of this house and move somewhere else, yes, right? Absolutely. And not even with a relationship with a mate, but just simply these are the questions that we should ask, yes, in order to move forward. So I really love that you use that with your branding and your work. That's awesome. Yes. Wonderful. So let's get into some of the juicy stuff about relationships. Okay. So I want to talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships first and what they look like and how you identify with it. And then we'll move into some of the other wonderful things that we're going to be talking about.
So healthy and unhealthy, my personal perception, my personal opinion is healthy is very much about connecting, effective communication, being able to be honest and respectful, even if you don't agree with each other. I mean, there's all sorts of things that come up, especially in romantic relationships where we just don't agree. We have a different way of approaching things, but that doesn't mean that you can't be honest and that you can't be respectful with one another. And I think what so often happens is that people don't know how to communicate effectively. It just turns into this pattern of frustration and irritation and sometimes resentment if it keeps on going and going, and then that turns into unhealthy, in my opinion. Yeah. So there's so much to it, but communication is really the core. And being able to have a healthy relationship with yourself is going to help you communicate more effectively with everybody.
Right. Yeah. I love that you brought up the self part because I used to be not just a relationship coach. I didn't mean it like that. I used to be a relationship coach for couples and then discovered the missing key was the self-love. So yes. Yeah, it's beautiful how it all integrates in, and what I'm discovering with some of the relationship people that I'm having on the show is the clarity of communication is what's key, in there, and then raising that emotional intelligence.
Yes,
beautiful.
Definitely. Absolutely, because you can be highly intellectual, but if you don't have the emotional intelligence to go along with it, if you still have 5-year-old wounds in a 40-year-old body, or a 70-year-old body of somebody I'm thinking about, and you don't communicate effectively. Yeah.
Right. It's brilliant. Let's talk about, you have your special 3 steps, your ABCs. So yes. I want to hear about that.
Yes, I used to call it 3 steps to know, should I stay or should I go? And then I turned it into ABCs because it's a really easy way to remember it. So the first step is awareness. You have to be aware of where you are now and where you want to be. And you don't want to focus too much on where you are now if you're not happy with that. But you have to acknowledge, okay, here's where I am. here's where I want to be, and what's the gap in between that? And then realizing, what can I do to close that gap? What can I do to bring that gap closer? So say on a scale from 1 to 10, you're at a level 3 and you want to be on a level 9. That's a gap of 6. Okay, what can I do to close that gap and bring that number closer? So then the next step is B, and it's about bravery. It's about being brave enough to look at what's not working and not put a whole lot of time and focus on it, but just acknowledging this is what's not working and this is what needs to change in order for that gap to close and get closer to where I want to be. And then the third step is conscious choice and commitment. There's a lot of C words, to take what you've learned from awareness and bravery and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So say the biggest step that needs to happen is better communication. So your conscious choice could be buy a book about communicating, or go to a counseling session with your partner, or do something that teaches you how to communicate differently than how you're communicating now, so that something different can happen as a result.
I love that.
Yeah, awareness, bravery, and conscious choice.
Now I want to get back to A. These are all wonderful. Can you give people, besides that, which is brilliant, should they journal? What should they do, or what could they do? We don't like the word should. What could we do to fully integrate what the awareness is, or even being brave? Because when you said it's not focusing on the negative, but understanding, I want a different experience.
Right. Yes. So journaling is a beautiful process. Absolutely. Because it just helps you on a continuous basis tap into what you're feeling. So many thoughts are spinning through our head all day, every day, just spin. If you never quiet down and just kind of tap into your heart, tap into how you're feeling. Where's the stress showing up in your body? What stressed you out today? Whatever may be going on, to really just sit with that quietly and either journal about it, or even just sitting there. Meditating is a great thing, or even just sitting quietly in your own space without interruptions, even for 5 to 10 minutes a day, can make a huge difference of just, okay, how am I feeling? Where's this showing up in my body? Start to develop this intuitive awareness. We all have intuition, but we're not in touch with it. But you start doing these little 10-minute exercises a day of either just sitting with your feelings or journaling along those lines. You start to develop that intuition. You start to tap into it, and you realize, okay, when I'm anxious, I feel like I can't take a deep breath. When I'm stressed out, I feel like I have a pit in my stomach. When I'm afraid to talk to somebody, my throat feels like it's going to close up. It's different for every person. But really, I think one of the biggest tools for women, especially because we've been conditioned to kind of stuff down our feelings, and you're overly sensitive, you're making a big deal out of nothing, you're so emotional. We're emotional for a reason. I am emotional, and I'm really
dudes, we grow and carry babies in us.
Exactly. Yeah, not grow a pair of balls, but grow a pair of ovaries.
Yeah.
So yes, I think journaling is a great thing. And then, talking with friends and expressing and articulating how you're feeling is a good thing, but it's really, you have to be careful about what kinds of friends you're talking to. And if they're going through the same stuff themselves and it just turns into a big complaint fest, that's really not going to help you.
You're making mud pies instead of baking a beautiful souffle or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very interesting. And then the brave part is accepting what you want and taking those steps forward.
Right.
Which can be very hard for people.
Right. Exactly. What's causing the gap? What is the biggest obstacle or challenge or problem, however you want to look at it? And again, you want to keep on focusing on that. But what is the biggest challenge? A lot of people will say, well, if he would just stop doing this, then I would be fine.
Right.
That's really giving your power away. You're basically saying you control how I respond, and that's not true. So even if your partner's doing something that you don't like, what can you do within yourself to change the way you look at it, or to change the way you communicate about it? Or I always like to use this example. When I was with somebody a number of years ago, he was on his electronic gadgets all the time, and it drove me nuts. And I would just say, if you would just stop doing that, then I would be okay. And so I'm basically giving all my power over to him. And then I realized one day, okay, on the other side of all this frustration, there's some kind of need that's not being met. And what is that? And I realized it was, I need to feel connected. When we're choosing to spend time together, I need to feel a connection. And when you're on your gadgets all the time, I don't feel like I'm a priority. And like this huge moment of clarity and relief came through. And then I was able to communicate from a place of love instead of nagging. Like, I want to connect with you. I want us to have quality time together when we're choosing to have quality time together. So even if your partner is doing something that you don't like, there's still things that you can change within yourself. It always takes two, no matter what.
That's really interesting about the electronic gadgets, because they've become so part of our life that we may not even realize that they disconnect us from each other. Because if two people are doing the same thing, then you're disconnected. And then when you do realize that there's that break there, to be able to communicate in a clearer sense. And I don't know if it's a man thing or what, but it seems to me that most men are on their phones more than women.
Right.
Yeah, I guess because we got little children to take care of and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, it's interesting when you bring in the new modern world into our reality. Yeah,
it is. And if you think about it, relationships without connection aren't very fulfilling. They don't feel very good. You might be going through the motions of it every day, but they don't really feel good. That's kind of the purpose of it, is to feel connected with somebody, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is our C, right? Which is number C, A, B, and C.
Conscious choice. Yes.
Conscious choice.
Yes, conscious choice, commitment, connection. There's all sorts of C words. But the conscious choice is looking at what you were brave about and then choosing to do something about it instead of just talking about it and complaining about it.
Right. So it's taking that step into actually changing, having action, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really, it's interesting because there's so many people, me included, I know I experienced it at times where there was that, you talk about it until you're almost sick of hearing it.
Yes.
And then you have to decide, okay, either I'm going to lose everybody around me or I'm going to kill myself.
Right.
I'm not really stating that as a fact, guys, when I laughed at that. But because we become so annoying even to ourselves that we have to commit to something. Once you commit, don't you find, Catherine, that once we make that commitment, it's easier to make these great changes and commitments because we realize how amazing it feels for us.
Exactly. And even if it's one small step, even if it's for signing up of like a balance series to just educate yourself on different things, even if it's just that, take that small step. And then each step that you take, that you commit to, that you actually follow through, that builds the strength, that builds the confidence, that builds the trust with yourself. And if you have any issues of abandonment, which most of us do, abandonment or rejection or dismissal, that commitment's really important to yourself, because if you commit to yourself and then you don't follow through, you're abandoning yourself in the process, which was a huge eye-opener for me. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God, yes. Now when I commit to something, I'm really committed to it. I won't commit unless I know I'm committed.
And then it brings again another aspect of self-love, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Because instead of just allowing ourselves to just flow around, we're actually taking action. Again, there's that A word, action.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Definitely.
I love that. So let's talk about understanding the emotions, because with what we just spoke about, the ABCs, that leaves us with a place of, well, I'm not doing this because I'm not emotionally advanced. My emotional intelligence level isn't raised. I haven't worked on it. So let's talk about how the emotions play this huge role in our experience.
Yes. So I often talk about this from the viewpoint that most of us are in our heads all the time. We're listening to the voices in our heads. We're listening to everybody else's voices. Try harder. If you were a good woman, you would stay no matter what. You're married, so now you have to deal with it, no matter what life gives to you. all these voices in our head are just thoughts spinning, 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 spinning. And enough time of the same thought becomes a belief, and then it just becomes a habit, whether it's good for you or not. But when you're not tuning into the feeling part of you, when you're not tuning into the emotional part of you, then you're just in your head all the time. So really, I believe the clarity comes when you can align your head with your heart, when you can have feelings that are aligned with your thoughts and thoughts that are aligned with your feelings. All the confusion comes from you're thinking one thing, but you're feeling another. That's where the stress comes from. That's where like, I just can't figure this out. I don't know what to do, because you have different things popping up. And so if you can start to really look at how you feel, how am I feeling? I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? Because I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea what's going to happen. If I try to make it work and it still doesn't, then I've wasted even more time. Or if I decide to go, what if I make a mistake? What if I regret what I did? And where's that coming from? Is that coming from a place of you don't feel safe in your world, or you don't trust yourself or other people? So really, this could go so deep. I could go into so many different emotions and how deep to go with them. But what I'm trying to emphasize is the feelings are so important. They're such to me, it's like the internal guidance system. If it doesn't feel right, there's a reason for that. And we have the whole fight or flight response that was really designed to help us run from serious fear, like a tiger literally chasing after us. But now in this society, we have so much fear on a daily basis that we lose touch with, oh, well, that's just normal. That's what everybody goes through. Lose touch with what's causing that and what the feelings are underneath. So,
there's a lot of talk, and this feels like a good topic for you. There's a lot of talk of thoughts become things as we evolve and we become more aware and our consciousness grows. So there are many people who, until they do wake up or shake up or, say, I want something different, whatever terminology you want to use, there's a lot of people who use the word afraid, scared in their everyday life. We were talking about the emotions. And so the emotions of being afraid or scared, and you always say it, I used to use that word all the time, like 10 times a day in just regular conversation. Talk a little bit with us about how our thinking also controls that emotional level and how we have to get past, which are called our belief system. How to integrate that in so that spark of A in the three, ABCs, that awareness pops up.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. Definitely. Louise Hay talks about a lot of that. When you just keep on thinking the same things, a lot of what we believe was brought to us from childhood. And then as an adult, we get to look back and go, okay, yeah, it made sense then, doesn't make sense now. I was taught as a child not to talk to strangers. If I kept on doing that as an adult, people, right? And that's just a very simple example, but that's a belief that we had as a kid. Don't talk to strangers, that's a bad thing. Well, that changes as we change. And so if your daily thoughts are, this is so hard, this is never going to work, he's never going to change, this is just the way the relationships are, this always happens to me, I always find these guys that don't treat me well, or I always put in all this effort, but I never get anything in return. If you just keep on telling yourself the same story over and over and over again with your thoughts, you do tend to start to believe them. And you do, and maybe not on a conscious level, but a subconscious level that you're not even necessarily aware of, that you feel defeated before you even start. So you get to this place of, I can't take this anymore and I need a change, but you have this whole momentum going of years and years and years, or maybe not that long, of the same story of how hard this is. This is so hard. This is never going to work. And then you feel defeated before you even start. So to start changing your thoughts, just moment by moment, day by day, doesn't have to be a big, huge project that you have to undertake, but just, what do I want to think? How do I want to feel? I want to feel more hopeful. So maybe I can start thinking anything is possible. I'm not really sure how this is going to work out, but I do believe it's possible. And just start shifting a little bit. You might not be able to jump to, okay, I totally got this and I feel so confident I can handle everything. Maybe you're not there yet, But you just start out with the little steps and you just keep on moving in that direction. And then you create a new momentum. And then I like to describe it as the old pattern. Say the old pattern is oil. It's slimy and heavy and yucky, but then you start dropping in every day a few drops of water, of new thoughts, of new ideas. And every day, a few more drops, a few more drops, a few more drops. In a week, the oil starts to get diluted. In a month, the oil's getting more diluted, more diluted, more diluted. Maybe it doesn't 100% go away, but eventually the water becomes the dominant source or the dominant force behind it.
That takes over, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it's helpful. Any kind of analogy that we can apply from something other than what we're dealing with is helpful.
And that also I'm all about doing science projects. Okay. So that would be a great project for anyone in a transformational space, just meaning that they're shifting from one area to another to examine as they grow. Think of 3 new ideas each day that you put in that custard cup drops of water into that little oil drop. Like take 1 tablespoon of oil and then put in 3 new beautiful thoughts each day that you want to support. And maybe even at night, like we do for gratitude stuff. I love that. I love how I just saw that happening when you were describing it. So that's kind of an expansion of awareness too. It's not your typical, let's write them down on a sheet of paper, but you can write it down on a sheet of paper too, and then put in your drops and watch it, because we as humans have to understand and integrate these ideas into our system, into our psyche, in order for us to actually have it work. So for some of you, that might even work better than you just writing stuff down. So.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's fun, dang it.
That's right. You can do a science project along the way. Yes.
Exactly. Let's talk about how to reclaim your power.
How to reclaim your power. It's so fascinating to me whenever I offer this in my relationship breakthrough sessions or my coaching sessions, and so many women are like, oh my God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
On it a little bit, but it is about once you recognize that you're giving all your power away by blaming, you're doing this, and I'm unhappy because of you. You're literally saying you have control over my quality of life. And so when you can step back, and I've done this before too, I've been in all of these situations, that's why I understand them, and step back and go, wait a second, I don't want this person to have control over my quality of life. I'm the leader of my life. And yes, I'm in a partnership with this person, but I get to decide what I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to put my attention on. So reclaiming your power is about turning that around and looking at yourself and not pointing out what you're doing wrong, but taking responsibility for your role. It's so easy to blame the other person and say that they're the fault of everything that's going wrong. But if you're in the relationship and you're choosing to stay there, that's a choice. That's a personal choice. The other person's not making that for you. You're making it for yourself. So to me, reclaiming your power is stop blaming. Stop blaming and look at how you can change the dynamics of the relationship, even if your partner is not ready to make changes and says everything is your fault. You can still do things on a daily basis within your own power that he doesn't even necessarily need to know about until you're ready to have a more meaningful conversation down the road.
It's about taking self-responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And that was I was in a 13-year relationship. I met him when I was 21, so I was very young and very insecure. I knew it was unhealthy from day one. He started lying to me before our second date, and I knew that, but I stayed in it because I was afraid to leave, and he paid so much attention to me and da-da-da-da-da. I stayed there for 13 years, and I knew the whole time that it wasn't healthy for me. So when I finally had the courage to leave, I had to look back and say, I was a part of that too. Why did I choose to stay so long? And how can I change that so that I don't keep on carrying this shit into my next relationship and the one after that and the one after that? Because if you just keep on blaming people, you're just going to jump from the same pattern to the same pattern to the same pattern. Different person, same
Amen.
stuff.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very much so. Okay, so we're at the end here, and you have a free gift for everybody. Would you like to share it?
Yes, I would love to share it. So I call it my 8 Days of Inspired Action Challenge, and it's an email opt-in that once you sign up for it, You receive an email each day, and it talks about the most common issues that come up with the should I stay or should I go predicament.
Mm.
It gives you a solution, a different approach that you can take within your power to start changing your approach about it. So it's
Nice.
they're simple steps, but they're very powerful steps. And it's just a little snippet taste of my whole program that I offer to my coaching clients.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
I love it. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What would you like to share from your heart right now?
What I'd like to share from my heart is please follow your heart. It is such a empowering and beautiful tool when you're able to step into your own power and say, I am worthy of following my own heart. I am the leader of my life. And when I can learn how to follow my heart, my quality of life is going to improve significantly. It just keeps on getting better and better and better. So follow your heart.
Wonderful. I love that. It's really beautiful. Thank you, Catherine, for joining us.
Thank you
It was
very
lovely.
much. I love that you're doing this series, and I feel very blessed to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, honey. And thank you all. We'll see you in another episode of Natural Balance, where body, mind, and spirit connect. Have a great day. Bye.